Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us here at Microsoft Ignite. My name is Anna Hoffman, and I'm joined by Idris Motiwala, and we are from the Microsoft SQL team. We have a great session planned for you. I just want to thank you all for joining us today. Just a quick housekeeping notes. We probably aren't going to have any time for questions, but we will hang out outside in the hall after the session, or you can find us in the booth later. But with that being said, let's go ahead.
Let's do this. Nice to meet you all, and I'm super excited to be here. We have some fun demos, fun things we're going to share. Anna, let's roll this.
Let's roll.
Yeah.
All right, so with SQL Server 2025 and SQL Database in Fabric going generally available yesterday, very exciting, Microsoft is continuing on its mission to deliver one consistent SQL from ground to cloud to Fabric. This empowers you to innovate at your own pace using similar SQL tools and skills to build intelligent AI apps and manage your data seamlessly. With one SQL, developers can develop once, deploy anywhere, enjoying enterprise-grade performance, security, and AI-ready capabilities everywhere your data lives. And today we're going to focus on SQL Database in Fabric. So the first question you might be asking is, why? Well, our data landscape is changing really fast. We're moving from siloed systems to unified data platforms where operational and analytical data work hand in hand. Now, we've combined forces between SQL's enterprise-grade OLTP workload supporting infrastructure and Fabric's modern SaaS or software as a service-like platform. So Fabric is bringing together various services like data engineering, real-time intelligence, Fabric IQ, which you learned a lot about yesterday, hopefully, all in one unified experience. And with everything landing in OneLake, you no longer have to stitch a bunch of services together to build end-to-end solutions for your applications. So with this session, we want to try something a little bit different, and we're going to go through an end-to-end scenario. We're just going to keep coming back to that scenario. So Idris, why don't you tell us about the scenario?
Yeah, I think if you roll to the next slide, let's just show you a demo here. Let's dive into a simple banking app service. Most people are probably familiar with it. I use it on a daily basis. You know, this is a classic app. You have transactions, you have person, you have a date. So the elements of a classic operational stuff are right here. In this case, person is actually transferring some money from one to another. I had to do that for my son today because he was broke. He's like, Dad, I need some money. So there you go. So like open up my app, classic things we do here. Now, what we only show is we have these apps, we have analytics, all of these things. One thing I wanted to stress a little bit here about is how there is also this ability to bring in an agent. You all talk to your agents of your banking apps. And as you can ask some questions, right, the agent is responding. So there's a whole fusion and amalgamation of transactional, analytical, agentic, all of these combined into one. And according to IDC and industry work studies, 1 billion new apps will be built in the next 5 years. And 81% of the leaders expect agent to be integrated into their company's AI strategy. How many folks are actually building AI strategy apps right here? OK, great. Now, let's put this together. I'm not going to be walking in detail, but what you saw in the demo here, essentially all the interactions are captured and modeled in Microsoft Fabric, which is now a unified data platform, which is enabling near real-time operational insights, advanced analytics and reporting. So there are components of the app. There's components of the databases. In fact, the entire databases, what you're seeing out there, is all in Microsoft Fabric and SQL databases. And then we have a semantic model. We have all the elements in there. And we have some things like activator and event streams along with data agents. So
we're going to see all that
We're going to see all that action. Let's unpack it all. But before that, Anna, do you want to just talk about our foundation pillars about SQL Database and Fabric and talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we went down the journey of building SQL Database in Fabric, we kept 3 pillars in mind. At every kind of intersection point of what should we do here, we remembered the pillars of simple, autonomous, and secure, and optimized for AI. So similarly today, what we thought we'd do is we'll go pillar by pillar and show you how SQL Database is simple, autonomous, and secure, and optimized for AI. So we're going to start with simple. And this really started with getting started. We wanted to give you a simplified, integrated developer experience so you get started easily and not have to worry about a lot of the other things that come into provisioning, managing, scaling, picking different options. So instead of showing a bunch of slides, I just thought I'd show you exactly what it is. So before we get in here, things you need to know about the scenario. We have 2 databases currently supporting the scenario, a banking database and an agentic app database. The banking database hosts all our transactions, and the agentic app is storing our chat history. But let's say we want to add a new database. We're going to go spin off a new exercise to create a loyalty program for 𝗲𝗲 banking. So getting started is really easy. All I do is create a new item, select SQL database, and give it a name. And that's it. Within a few seconds, I'm put in a nice landing page where I have some different options for how I can get started bringing data into this database. Now, in addition to bringing data in, I have other tools to get started, like templates. I can open it in my tool of choice with that connection live in VS Code or SSMS. I can also take advantage of things like Copilot. Now, this is an empty database, so the first thing I want to do is probably create some tables. So I can create a new table by leveraging the inline Copilot assistant, which has the context of my database. With that, I have a table really easily created for me to get started. So just like that, you see how easily you can get started with SQL Database in Fabric. Of course, we always have the programmatic ways of deploying as well, but this is getting started. All right, so the next thing is once you create a SQL database in Fabric, we have mirroring on by default. What does this mean? This means that by default, in near real time, we're replicating all of the data to OneLake in 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗃. This gives you something called a SQL Analytics endpoint. Some of you familiar with Fabric may have heard of this already. But with the SQL Analytics endpoint, you essentially have a mostly read-only source that you can use to offload your analytics from. You can take advantage of shortcuts, all sorts of things. Everything in Fabric you can now take advantage of through this analytics endpoint. So again, I want to show you an example of this. So we're going to see 3 ways SQLDB in Fabric is making it easier for you to join data. Okay, so we're in the banking DB today, and we're going to switch in the editor over to that SQL Analytics endpoint. Now, when you're there, you're going to see on the left-hand Explorer, I can link to many different SQL Analytics endpoints. So I have both my databases that I talked about earlier here. I can add other ones too. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new query. I'm going to use Copilot again to create a join between those 2 data sources. So that's the first example. Very easy to start doing cross-database joins on your analytics endpoint. Now, the second example I want to show you is using something called external tables. Now, when you think about external tables, you can kind of think of them like a shortcut from SQL Database. So what I have here is a simple script that gets us through setting that up. I'm going to create an external file format, and then I'm going to create an external data source to that data in OneLake, in this case to the Agentic App DB. So I'm pointing to the location that data is, and then I can use Open Row Set to kind of do ad hoc querying on the data that's living in that SQL Analytics endpoint. Additionally, if I want to start querying this more regularly or do some joins more easily, I can create an external table for those 𝗲𝗀𝗃 files. So I can do that super easily, and now I have an external table for the chat history, and I can start to join it with the banking data. So that's kind of your second example of how easily you can do joins with your data. Now, the third one is a little bit different from how you might be doing joins today, and that's using something called a data agent. Now, a data agent is similar to this other exercise we saw, is going to enable you to be able to query across different services, but using AI. So here I have agent instructions. I can also publish this agent, and I'm pointing to different data sources of my databases. And then I can ask a question like correlations between chat sessions and transactions and have a natural language conversation about the data. I can see the queries that were run, and I can also, like I mentioned earlier, publish this and leverage somewhere else. So those are 3 ways you can easily join data now that you have SQLDB in Fabric. Okay, the third thing I want to show you on the simple front is application lifecycle management. How many of you have your databases under source control today? Awesome, I love to see that. Okay, awesome, great. So with Fabric, we're making it much more integrated into Fabric, your Git repositories, and your developer experiences. So what we've enabled you to do is essentially commit everything in your workspace to source control, so commit it to GitHub or an Azure DevOps repo, and similarly update from an Azure DevOps or GitHub repo into your items in Fabric. So let's take a look at an example. Now, just before we start this, things you should know is what did we do? We created a new database, and we added an external table. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my workspace. This has already been set up with Azure DevOps. I can see those 2 changes are in my changes. So I'm going to commit them into my Keynote branch, And once they're committed, I can hop over to Azure DevOps and see the changes landing there, as well as the entire database represented as code using SQL projects, by the way. And I can see that loyalty app table we just created. Heading over to VS Code, I can refresh my repository, and I can start building right here using code if I want. So let's say we're going to add a rewards catalog for our app. Now I can connect here, but I wanted to take this opportunity to show you the MS SQL extension in VS Code. This makes it super easy to get connected. I can just browse the workspace, pick the database or the analytics endpoint, and get connected and start querying. And I can do things like use the table designer, I can use the schema designer. Everything that's in here just works with my SQL database in Fabric. I can start to query. But let's say for this purpose, I actually want to use GitHub Copilot, because that's a thing, and I'm in VS Code. So I can go back to that editor window we had. I can connect it to my loyalty DB. And now that it's connected, this is the key, now that it's connected, GitHub Copilot and the MS SQL extension has access to the schema behind the scenes. So what it's going to do is it's going to say, hey, I looked at your loyalty app table, the one we created earlier, and I've created a rewards catalog table for you based on that. And I can start to go back and forth with GitHub Copilot now, or I can just say, you know what, this is good enough, and for this purpose, it's good enough. I'm going to insert it into my SQL file, and I can take a look, I can review, make sure this is what I want, this is the table that I want to add, and go ahead and save that. You can see the change is reflected there, and I can go into to Git and just go ahead and commit that change. So now I'm committing it into my Azure DevOps repo, and so what I would expect is in Fabric, I would see changes, right? Because now I've made changes to the code repository. So let's head over back to Fabric and take a look. So sure enough, in the updates, I see some updates there. I can go ahead and update them all. Now this is going to look for any changes that need to be applied to my databases or anything else. But in this case, we can see that that new table was created. So now you can see how you can commit to source control and update from source control very easily with SQL Database in Fabric. Now, the next thing we want to do is we're going to roll a video from a customer called Eastman to show you how they think SQL Database in Fabric has simplified their workflows.
At Eastman, our sales teams are the heart of the company, and they were burning out. Before every customer meeting, they'd spend hours digging through spreadsheets, documents, case summaries, all this disconnected data just to feel prepared.
We knew something had to change, so we built a sales copilot, an AI-powered assistant that lives right inside our CRM.
It's like a personal research assistant, ready to answer any questions in seconds.
We built it using Azure Web Apps and Azure OpenAI Service with Microsoft Fabric as our data platform.
Fabric has everything we need: data warehousing, reporting, dashboarding, analytics in one layer. With workspaces, teams can take data from, say, finance or supply chain and shortcut it into their workspace for analysis.
SQL Database in Microsoft Fabric is more precise than basic search. It combines vector search with SQL filtering to find the most relevant answers to complex questions.
Now, when sellers prep for a call from their car or hotel lobby, they just ask, what was this customer's top priority last meeting? And they get a clear answer instantly. No more late nights, no more guesswork.
We've also cut development time by eliminating the need for multiple ETL pipelines. The data is already there.
With Fabric, we can scale in every direction, and we have the analytical power to innovate with AI.
Our teams feel empowered. They're spending less time on admin and more time building relationships. That's the kind of innovation that changes lives, not just workflows.
That's terrific. What do you all think? This just humbles me to see the empowerment, the simplicity. And Anna showed a lot of these simple videos and demos. What I wanted to cover is the second pillar, autonomous and secure. Behind all the simplicity, our army of architects and engineers have worked to bring you this. Our challenge was, why did the customers share their challenges with us and saying, in managing database platforms, there are complexities. You have to make choices for selecting the memories, the cores, all the other things which are needed from networking perspective. So our vision has to be to automate every aspect of database provisioning, making it instant so that users can focus on their business and applications. And our product and engineering architecture team, it just exactly did that. They abstracted all these complexities for SQL Database in Fabric. And we wanted to make it secure by default, give all the capabilities of high availability disaster recovery and auto-scaling and optimized. To dig that a little bit deeper, let's look at of the SQL Database in Fabric architecture. What we have done is we have fully integrated the Azure SQL Database architecture. How many of you all used Azure SQL Database in past today? Great. It's exactly the same engine. In fact, it's the same engine. And we use that as a serverless, which is provisioned instantly by a fleet manager. On the left-hand side, you see we call it transactional, which is where your operational databases. And then we keep the same familiar SQL format of your data. So if you're familiar with your logs and their backups, with the MDFs and the LDFs, it's exactly the same. You still have those available. And all that data is then mirrored, as Anna talked about it, into Fabric OneLake, which stores as a read-only copy a SQL Analytics endpoint, and it's in Delta Parquet format. Now, once that happens, suddenly all the workloads and experience in Fabric lights up. So this is how we worked under the hood. It's all done for you. You don't have to do any of that stuff, and that's how it integrates together, bringing in together transactional and the analytical capabilities in one single platform. And this architecture now delivers the full power of Fabric with no compromises on your operational database. So if you're worried about the workload isolation, if I'm running my regular operational reports, they take the load on your operational, but when you're doing analytical, you're running it on Fabric. So that's why with this architecture made it really scalable and make it help achieve the user's complexities and address those challenges. Now, with that, I know we spoke about the HA redundancy. We talked about the OneLake. Few things I wanted to talk about here is, all the databases basically we have are replicated, but also we provide them intelligent query processing. What does that mean? So if there are plans or there are queries which are being executed and needs to be optimized, it automatically does that for you. And also, there's something called, you notice, auto-indexing. What does that mean? So if you're writing queries, and let's say you've not created indexes and you've been running for a long time, and the system detects, wait a sec, you're taking a long time to render those return results back, it will automatically create those indexes for you. And since it's based on the same Azure SQL Database engine, it does the auto-patching for you. So you don't have to worry about the hardware and the software upgrades, all that stuff. It's all done behind the scene. And we talked about the architecture. The fleet space, the fleet manager does all the job for you. So with that, Anna, would you actually secure? One thing I wanted to bring this up is Microsoft's top priority is security, right? And adding this, coming to Fabric, we want to make this super, super secure by default. So one of the things is I'm going to cover 3 areas there. Authentication, you all have been asking for. So the authentication across the board guarantees passwordless authentication and allow users to centrally manage their identities. We have the capability to authorize users. You can create the roles at the workspace level. But 2 things else I wanted to talk about is the data encryption. One of the things about data encryption today is already today we encrypt the data using Microsoft managed keys. But as of yesterday, we announced the availability of customer managed keys. So you can bring in your own keys from your Azure Key Vault and apply that. So now you have dual encryption for compliance and security purposes. Also, since last year when we announced, SQL auditing was not available. And you all asked for it. And we want SQL audit logs, so we gave exactly that. Now you have the ability to have SQL auditing by default. You can now also customize it. These are, again, for compliance purposes, for auditing purposes. Enterprises are asking for it. Security threats, and all of those can be logged. And finally, we have the Purview integration. So Anna, what do you think?
Amazing. I think the takeaway from my side is SQL Database in Fabric is enterprise ready. Let's take a look.
Absolutely. Let's take a look.
So you can go ahead and, All right, so here we are. We're going to do a flyby of all the enterprise-ready capabilities. 1, sensitivity labels. Microsoft Information Protection just works with SQL DB in Fabric. You can endorse databases as you need. Of course, you can get your backup retention policy from 1 to 35 days. That's something we recently released. And as Idris mentioned, customer managed keys are available. Now, you apply customer managed keys at the workspace level, and we take care of the rest. So this means that if you have a CMK-enabled workspace, all the resources in it that support CMK are going to be there. So we can see that, and we can just verify, right? We can verify that, indeed, this database is encrypted using customer managed keys. All right, so that's not all. Let's continue our tour. Additionally, you can monitor things like replication. So if any issues are happening there, you want to see the status. But let's say for our loyalty app, we actually want to create a new role. So I can very easily do things called custom roles. Of course, this experience is super easy to do, but I want to call out that you can also do it, of course, programmatically. Here I'm creating a new role that just has select permissions, and then I can manage access to that role. I can give access to, in this example, Idris, or even better, I can use manage identities or give access to the application itself. All right, so that's that, but Idris also mentioned auditing. And so if you turn on auditing, we're going to audit everything by default, and we're going to retain it forever because we want to set you up for success by default. But if you want to do a custom audit, we also have options for you to do there. You can change the retention period if you like, and even write things like predicate expressions. Now, once you set up auditing, I'm just going to audit everything. You can review the logs just like you've been reviewing them before. You can do it with T-SQL, you can open SSMS and use the XEL files, but the point is here, it just works. Now, the performance summary is something we've gotten a lot of positive feedback about. You get this high-level overview of what's going on in the past 24 hours in your database, and you can dive into that. And what I love about this is we're helping you go from insights to action faster, okay? So we can take a look at things like CPU consumption, and we can see the queries, all the queries that are being run and how much CPU they're consuming, how many times they've been executed. I can favorite queries. I can see the query execution history over time, maybe see like if all of a sudden it's taking longer to run. I can see that query. I can copy it and open it in the editor, my tool of choice to start working on it, probably with the help of some Copilot. I can also look at the queries across the board, and we have these great tags that help me understand, what are some of those problem queries I might want to look at. Going back to the dashboard, you can see kind of some of the different blades you can take a look at, like user connections, requests per second. And again, for all of these, you can go down and look at the queries that are impacting these numbers. You can also change the time interval. So for allocated size, I can see how the database is growing over time. And Idris mentioned automatic indexing. So here's an example where an index had been created, and now it's in the status of being verified. So we'll verify that it actually is creating some performance improvements for you, and then we can revert it as needed. This is one example I just wanted to show. Again, you can use Copilot to help tune your queries, but I want you guys to think like we're building a SaaS service. So you can expect like an experience like this. We want to continue to innovate and work that into the performance dashboard so you can, again, go from insights to actions and just getting faster. Idris, what do you think?
I think this is amazing. Anna, while you were doing this, I was thinking of different personas. Application developers, data engineers, data analysts, and then now the network administrators, DBAs or SAs.
Absolutely.
You've all amalgamated. You've got all of these personas in one place, and it's so simple to use and it's intuitive. So thank you, Anna, on that. Yeah. So next, I wanted to cover the next pillar, the optimized for AI. So there are three areas I want to talk here about. One is a RAG pattern. One is called retrieval augmented generation. It's basically combining the reasoning power of your large language models, which you're all familiar with. And you heard a lot about this in this conference, and I'm going to hear more, with the precision of your enterprise data instead of solely just relying on the power of pre-trained knowledge. And that's what brings in the concept of semantic search. So we use semantic search to retrieve the relevant data from SQL database in Fabric so that the model generates the answers that are grounded in our actual business context. And here's how semantic goes. Every piece of your data in SQL database turns into an embedding, and that embedding is nothing but an array of floating numbers, which we call as a vector. And with all of that stuff, you can also integrate with Fabric. All of this we'll see. Some of this is going to be coming up. Data science with notebooks. We've seen data agent. Anna already showed that earlier. We have data activator and real-time intelligence. You can prepare data with data pipelines. You know what? With further ado, let's just go and see this in action a little bit. Now, you saw earlier in the demo how that agentic AI app would handle the customer support tasks. So here we have a PDF, which we are going to take. It's an unstructured file. It has a classic Q&A. We're going to break it down. And what you're going to do is we're going to create a database credential. We're going to use our new AI function, which is a create external model, which is available. And we use that to send it back to OpenAI. And using the deployment model, we're going to use the authentication and text embedding model, which we're going to use to create that. OK, all right. OK. That's what OK. Maybe I'm shaking too much. So now we're going to take this all into data pipeline. What we're going to do is, sorry, there's a little bit of jitter. All right. We have loaded this file PDF in the Azure Blob Container. Now we're going to take the file from the Blob Container. We're going to actually copy it back into Lakehouse. So you'll see a lot of integrations here going on. And then we're going to take the data and we're going to extract this. Now, using the extracted capabilities, we're going to actually use something called the Azure Document Intelligence Service. So which is we're going to take a pre-built layout. Now this is like your assistant available, which actually takes all your data, your metadata, your entities, and makes it available and provides context. Next we're going to create is a table, which is going to take all these chunks and embeddings. This is essentially your vector data, and we're going to put all that semantic information inside. So the next step in the pipeline, and we're going to show that we made it a scalable app here. It's going to use the capabilities of new functions called AI generated embeddings, which generates those embeddings for you from that AM PDF model we created. And then we're going to generate the chunks, which is the actual text. And we're going to show you how this actually runs through when we extract this information. And we're taking it and putting it back into the table. So here, once we get the chunk size, we're putting in, we can change the chunk size 100, 200, but now we look at the data. Hopefully it shows up. Maybe I should just put this thing down. And you can, all right, sorry about that. And you can see that, OK, now we are actually going to create an LLM. We're going to create an AI assistant to provide context to the user queries. And we are providing that same information to using external REST endpoint. And you can provide that to OpenAI. And what we're going to do is, earlier in that thing, we also gave it a vector distance function, which allows you to correlate and see how many rows can be returned back from there. And there you see, now we're going to execute. Now, this is an actual LLM. We're actually talking and saying what type of credit cards are available based on not only the PDF, but also what's available in the pre-trained models. And it can tell you that what the APRs are, what the kind of cards which are available, and you can get that information. This, again, I'm copying it here from SQL. All of this can be done from your SQL database in Fabric, right from Fabric itself. And also, as and when the chats are happening, we're writing it back. Remember, Anna showed earlier that we have the chat application and the chat databases. We're writing all that information back into the database. So moving forward, you ask, like, how do we monitor all of this stuff? So we have created Power BI dashboards. Remember, we talked about usage and tracking. So now, as a tech ops from IT, you can actually track and see what's the average session going, what's the duration on it, what kind of questions have been asked by each session. So you can see on certain date how many questions have been coming in, what's the duration have been. There's a narrative which generates. Also, you can see the tool health. I mean, IT cost is important. The tokens, how many are generated for the transfer of the money, and how much are you taking to transfer the, for example, how many times you have actually used an FAQ. All of that information can be all automated in Power BI. Now, with that, we just wanted to recap on this whole thing about where we started off. So we have a banking app, right, where the customer is using this. Then we have these components of AI Foundry, right, and the API agent. Basically, what it's doing, it's interacting using the database scope credentials. We're talking to that. Then we have two databases which we created. One is the agentic operational app, and there's a customer app, right, which is tracking all the information. All of the data also got into OneLake. Right? And then there was a data agent we showed you, and we showed you Power BI reports, all of the capabilities of usage, cost tracking. But there's one more thing we have. Right now, we have this capability of taking the data and actually connecting to using change event streaming and doing an activator. And today, it's change event streaming is in private preview, but we wanted to show you this capability on how this all comes together. So the next demo right here, what we're going to do is we're going to see how Fabric empowers real-time intelligence as well as all the operations. You can continuously monitor your data. So you're going to create a stream. We're going to create a stream group and say, hey, this is the name for the group. And we're going to use the same database credential we used for the AI earlier. We're going to provide it there. And we're going to say, hey, now I want to track all the transactions which are coming in. So imagine if you're a lead at a bank, right, and your team is responsive to in real time for any kind of frauds happening or any kind of triggers or alerts or automated actions. The streams can actually take a real time. You can actually create an activator and a report a condition out of that. So you don't need to do any of these things using ETL or bad jobs, and the results will be much faster for fraud detection. So you can see that this can help the bank with improved compliance and safer banking experience for all of your customers. And there it is. So once you get a note, you can get an email and see that there's been a potential fraudulent transaction. So what we have seen here is, Anna, what do you think about this?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And I think the cool thing is we're really just getting started with the general availability. So this week, we've announced a lot of things. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you like my demo speed, you've seen most of them. But just to call out a few things here that I think are interesting, GODR, we announced a private preview as well as Workspace private link. So I just want everyone to know, like, this is enterprise ready, and we're continuing to make sure that we're going to be there from an enterprise standpoint. Let's see, what else is interesting to you?
I think the Power BI translytical task flows. We've seen a lot of customers taking.
What is that for folks?
So
who don't
essentially,
know?
yeah. So essentially from Power BI on a visual itself, you can actually update your records directly into SQL Database and Fabric using user-defined functions. So that way, you don't have to go and write another kind of function and application altogether right from your visual itself. That we are seeing a lot, and we're also seeing a lot of use cases about folks writing back to the database, and we'll talk about that, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So there's a lot of things going on. I mentioned a couple times as well, like you've seen a lot in the user experience, but all of these things we're working on providing more REST APIs, more programmatic capability for you.
Yeah, it brings to the use cases, right? Anna, you and I were talking about with so many customers talking about the various use cases.
Absolutely, yeah. So a lot of you might be wondering, oh, what am I going to use this for? Well, this is your list of all the things that folks have been using it for. So let's go through a couple of them. One, we saw, kind of your vector and AI app dev. We're making those projects really easy by just running in Fabric. Another is operational data store. Actually, Idris ran into someone yesterday who's doing exactly this. What else is interesting here?
Oh, I think the vector and AI app dev, we're starting more customers seeing that. Also, we're starting to see reverse ETL, and we're going to have some. Jeff is going to come and talk about it on that one as well. And the metadata-driven pipelines, the Power Apps, they're starting to use SQL Database and Fabric, so it's becoming more and more easier for them to integrate all of that. So those are some key ones which I wanted to share.
Absolutely. Hopefully that gives you all some inspiration. Now, it's really fascinating to see kind of the partner ecosystem kind of flock to this. And what I love about this is these are all the database featured partners for Fabric SQL Database. And you can see how many they are. And we just went GA. I think what it shows is how they really believe that this is a game changer. And we actually have quite a few customers that have gone into production as well, right?
Yeah, for each of these partners, like we have customers who are actually gone there, and they're actually getting more of their customers are inspired by what the transformations we're bringing in through the partners.
Awesome. And what are some of those customers saying?
So some of the customers, so before that, I want to show some of the customers' logo. Look at the customers we have. I mean, we have Eastman, who we saw the video. We have Kaz. All of these customers, what they are saying is they are seeing enhanced decision-making in the sense they are actually seeing time to insights, reduced to TCO. We are seeing the data and analytics integration, the wall between operational and transactional. It's all getting collapsed, and it's so seamless for them. It's actually driving a huge transformation journey. And to get this, I thought, these are customers who have spoken. I would like to invite Jeff from Origins. Jeff?
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right,
Great
Jeff.
to see you.
All right, good to see you, Jeff. Well, thanks for coming and talking about stories. So why don't you tell our audience here about your story, about your background and your transformation journey at Origins?
Yeah, absolutely. I was worried Skynet was taking over the presentation for a minute there, but it seems like we got everything working. I can see it again here. So Origins is probably like a lot of you in that we are a 30-year-old company that provides financial services to the credit union and auto lending space. If you've ever done an auto loan with a credit union, it's a high chance that you actually ran through our platform that does the underwriting, the credit decision, and ultimately the funding of your loan. As a company, we move billions of dollars every single year between the auto dealers where you're buying the car and the credit union that gave you the loan. And because of that, we're in a similar situation where we've got a lot of systems that are 20+ years old that are the backbone of these financial transactions. We've got fintechs that are on our heels with kind of innovative new features. And then with everything going with AI, we are just absolutely lit on fire as we innovate as an organization. So we've got a huge mix of legacy technology and brand new things and trying to find the right solution to put all those together.
So Jeff, you just said a few things. Legacy, transformation, AI. Why don't you walk us a little bit about how you started and where you're at right now with your journey?
Yeah, we've got a couple different use cases that we're working and one that is in production today. Took our legacy ETL process that was pulling the real transactional data like we were talking about when you look at your online banking application. And that was a nightly process. It took 4-something hours to run. We were always out of date. There were always problems with it. And our challenge is we are trying to build chatbots and real-time analytics back into the transactional system. And the lag between that just wasn't going to work. So we used what is now, I think, a little bit of more your legacy of doing it, which was using SQL mirroring to directly get that data from our transactional database into Fabric. That cut out that massively complicated ETL that we had. and got it right into our silver layer. From there, we were now able to use notebooks and split up our data so that our real-time data could be transacted instantly, as well as create our architecture where we could take analytics and feed those back in a reverse ETL into our transactional platform. And it really has given us best of both worlds.
Well, this is great, Jeff. So I just wanted to unpack a little bit. When the data and the line silver to gold goes in, it's just not the data coming from Fabric SQL. There are other sources as well which you're triangulating and actually feeding it back into SQL. So it's like it starts there, source. Talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So, of course, all of our structured data is sitting here in SQL, but we have tons of unstructured data that's coming from other analytics platforms. We have third-party risk products where we are trying to really correlate and bring those systems for real-time insights in the data and for AI chat experiences for our customers. And we've got over 12 different data sources production right this moment that are pulling that in there, that we're able to cross data and produce it in whether Power BI or it's in a chat scenario.
Thank you, Jeff. So tell us a little bit about maybe any kind of challenges or barriers or maybe even some motivation for our folks here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we've all been through many different modernizations, and anytime you start moving things from, IaaS to PaaS to now looking at a SaaS solution, I look at it as you're trading some old problems for potentially some new ones. So there's always some skepticism. Our team was very nervous about, even though we've had some really great experience with Azure SQL, letting go of more control of the database, especially for some of our transactional load that we're starting to move in some of our other projects. So we had to work through that. And there's some features that were in preview that are now GA around private endpoint networking and those things that really helped give us that confidence. And also just knowing that it truly was based on Azure SQL helped, I think, get the team comfortable. From there, what they've actually found is that in a lot of ways, not only has this simplified a lot of things and allowed our line of business groups to be able to deploy things much faster, but they're getting better insights. They're comparing some of the things that we're seeing in some of the tuning and the reporting to what we get with third-party products that we're currently using today on our IaaS databases, and just putting that right in the hands of everybody in the data group as well as the developers. So it's really democratizing development for us. We're obviously building a ton of AI solutions, and a lot of that is on unstructured data, but a lot of solutions still need a database. And what this is allowing is, as we've really moved more towards democratized development across our entire organization, smaller teams can go in, create their database, have it in a SaaS platform where we feel confidence with the security and the way that it's been deployed, do that self-service and really easy, and add that data into their apps.
And it's great to see that you're doing the tuning analysis. Your architects have said this. This is amazing. So thank you so much, Jeff, for your time here. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Everybody, Jeff. Anna, you want to talk about what's next?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's really cool about the way the Fabric folks approach the Fabric roadmap is out in the open. So we're following suit with SQLDB and Fabric. Here's our publicly available roadmap. You can find it within the Fabric roadmaps as well. A couple things to call out. You saw external tables. Well, we want to make that even easier. Think right-click, new shortcut. So that's something we're working on. We're also working on a new migration experience. This is just a glimpse at what we're working on there. We've heard from folks that they want to migrate from SQL Server or elsewhere into SQLDB and Fabric. More on the GODR front, I mentioned that a little bit earlier, and support for unlocking a couple things that you have been asking us for, like more collation, selective table replication, and even some more or better scaling options. What we're going for is SaaS by default and PaaS configurable. So we want to set you up for success by default, but also enable you to get the controls that you tell us you need. So your feedback is very important to us. On the Optimize for AI front, we're looking at doing better optimizations with semantic search and more integrations and better experiences, more integrations with Microsoft Foundry, and you saw change event streaming, but that's not quite public yet. So we're working on getting that out there. That's not all, right? So we talked about at the beginning how it's one SQL from ground to cloud to Fabric. And this is, yeah, I love all the cameras. This is the slide where you can see everything across the Microsoft SQL team. We're all one team, just so everybody knows. We're all one team. These are all the things we've been working on, and things like vector indexing that you saw are available from ground to cloud to Fabric. And we're using and innovating on our tools. You saw the MS SQL extension in VS Code. SSMS 22 also went generally available. We're investing in copilots across all of those different interfaces, a new Python driver. There's a lot of things. It's a really exciting time to be following SQL. And we're going on this AI journey, and we want to bring you with us. So we just announced last week that we are developing a SQL AI developer certification. So just like when we first started moving to the cloud and we brought you along with us to learn how to migrate and learn how to get the best out of the cloud, we're doing the same with this SQL AI developer certificate, and we're really excited for it, and we hope you are too. Another really exciting thing is some of you may have heard of FabCon, but we actually just announced the first ever SQLCon, and I'm so excited because if you're here, it means you like SQL at least a little bit. So imagine a conference where there were 50 SQL sessions. We're going to bring the team, we're going to bring the best from the community, and of course it's going to be hosted side by side with FabCon. So this is something you're not going to want to miss. It's going to be in Atlanta next spring. So go ahead and sign up, and we have a discount code for you there as well. Okay, my last announcement is this event is not over yet. So here we are at Microsoft Ignite. This is all the places you can find the team. We are also always at the booth in the hub, so we hope you'll come find us. And if you missed any of these sessions, some of them are recorded. You can get hands-on with this. There was a lab last night. There's labs today and tomorrow to get hands-on with SQL DB and Fabric and the AI experiences. So if you want to come try that out, it's run by our team, so you can meet some of the engineers, meet some of the product managers, and talk to us. We'd love to engage with you on your scenarios.
And I would like to give a shameless plug
Yeah.
for Lab 533. It's at 2 p.m. Today and 1 p.m. tomorrow. Yesterday we had a lab at 6:45 p.m. and I thought nobody would show up. There were 50 people who showed up, and everybody loved it. And so this is about creating an AI app using the vector capabilities, all of those things, bringing Power BI, Copilot, everything in 1 hour. So please join us if you're interested in that.
Awesome. So with that, we'll put a couple links here. We did link to the SQL and Fabric Ignite Lab, so if you want to check it out later, you don't have time this week, it's out there as well. All the demos you saw are also part of this agentic app Fabric tutorial, so it's also all on GitHub if you want to try it out yourself. Of course, we have a Data Exposed series dedicated to SQL DB and Fabric and a blog for you to learn more. I just want to thank you guys so much for being with us today. And among the whole journey of private preview, public preview, and now general availability, we are just getting started. Have a great rest of Ignite.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming.